Bulleit barrel strength bourbon. Should this be mentioned alongside some of the other big boys in the barrel strength category? Let's find out today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. Let's do this. Welcome back to the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. My name is Scott. Today we dive into Bulleit barrel strength bourbon whiskey. This is coming in at a proof of 119.2 proof or 59.6% ABV. This is blends of 5 and 8 year bourbons. The mash bill on this one is 68% corn, 28% rye, and 4% malted barley. So in today's day and age regarding mash bills, this is going to be definitely on the higher rye side. Age statement, basically none. MSRP on this, it kind of ranges anywhere from about $40 to $60 depending on where you are within the states. So typically what I try to do with my reviews is we'll go through the appearance, we'll nose it, taste it, and then get into really anything else having to do with the whiskey itself. So again, today's review is of the Bulleit Bourbon Barrel Strength. All right, let's get into the review. Color-wise, you can see it's a really nice kind of deep copper. Again, you've got some blends of upwards of 8 year bourbons in there. You're gonna start to pull out a little extra color there. So, all right, let's get into the nose here. So right away, a heavy cinnamon note. Really nice kind of vanilla, more along the lines of like a creamy vanilla. Definitely some wood char. Definitely, again, dark fruits, more along the lines of like a plum, something that's like a rich note. Really nice, rich, creamy caramel note. Some of those burnt sugars. More oak is kind of starting to come through a little bit. It's really fairly heavy on the oak side. Some burnt sugar. Brown sugars, burnt sugar, something along those lines. A little bit of toffee. And a little bit of butterscotch. It kind of just came out a little bit there at the end on that. All right, more importantly, let's see how this one tastes. Cheers. So right away, kind of like I got on the nose, a heavy amount of oak and rye spice, like right off the bat. It's very oak forward. That cinnamon really starts to kind of come forward, but it's, again, immediately heavy on the oak side, heavy on that rye spice as well. And then now kind of coming in, you're starting to get the layers of the sweetness. Here comes some of that like vanilla, a little bit more of those dark fruits are starting to come through a little bit more on this one. But yeah, that cinnamon, the heavy spice, that definitely heavy barrel char is there. It's a little more oaky than I would like, starts to dry out a little bit. But for me, I think I don't mind a bourbon that has some oak that's there, but when it leads with oak, a lot of times it becomes very tannic, and that's really what you kind of continue to pick up on the profile. Again, is just that heavy oak, that rye spice. Some of the sweetness does start to come in a tad, but again, it's very dominant on the spice and oak side of things. Not overly hot. Now again, I've had this sitting out now for about maybe 15 or 20 minutes prior to the review, so it does allow some of the ethanol to kind of burn off a little bit. It does actually have a pretty nice mouthfeel to it. There's some oil that's there, so it does kind of coat the mouth pretty well, so it does have that going for it. But overall, I would say for somebody who enjoys a kind of a richer, oaky, spicy bourbon with a little bit of underlying sweetness, and again, you do have some of those standard bourbon profile there with the vanillas and the caramels, things like that. But for this one specifically, I would say it's just heavy, again, like I mentioned before, on the char. and the spice side of things. So if that's something that you really enjoy in a bourbon, this would probably be something that you'd really enjoy. Now, as far as cocktails go, I think this would hold up really well just because essentially of that spice and that oak. I think there's definitely some things you could do with it there. And at that price point, it's not kind of, you know, prohibitive in terms of, you know, making cocktails or using it for cocktails, especially if you can find it, you know, closer to that $40 price range. But overall, it's a solid bourbon. Would it be something that I would necessarily recommend to people? No, only from the standpoint of I'd have to know what their palate is like. What do they really appreciate in a bourbon? And again, if it's something that is not a little bit heavier on the oak side, I would say this is something that you probably should steer away from. The proof and everything is fantastic on it. I like that. I like the mouthfeel. Again, it just goes back to how oaky and spicy it is up front. And again, the spice part of it isn't a huge factor for me. That's something I really enjoy, but I don't really enjoy a bourbon that leads like oak forward. So for me, that's a little bit off-putting. So hopefully that helps in your determination whether or not you are considering the barrel strength from Bulleit. So you know, if we go back to the whiskey, finish-wise, I would say is probably on the medium side. And again, the finish for me was basically all oak and some spice. So it didn't overall have a lot going on. So for me, it kind of falls in that, really that non-recommendation type of category. So, you know, that's kind of what I have to say about the Bulleit bourbon barrel strength. So with that being said, so remember, follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, and then also if you'd like to help support or contribute to the channel, you can through my Patreon page, which I'll have linked in the description below. Also remember, like, subscribe, leave comments. I'm always interested to hear people's feedback and thoughts on the bourbons that I'm reviewing, and kind of, you know, what you were getting with the barrel strength from Bulleit. So with that being said, I want to say thank you so much for tuning into another one of my reviews. Hopefully we'll see you again next time. And remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.